In this segment, we're going to talk about analyzing consumer markets. So let me get started here and share my screen. So what influences consumer behavior? Consumer behavior is basically just the study of how groups of people and individuals purchase products, how they buy, they use, and they dispose of products, services, ideas, etc. And the main thing that we're looking at is that what influences consumer behavior is things like culture, social class, personal factors. So we're going to dive into those and look at them in more detail. So when we look at cultural factors, we have the main culture that they live in. They could be affected by their subculture. They could also be affected by their social class. In other words, the amount of income that the family has. Another influence of consumer behavior are social factors. For example, the family that you are raised in has a lot of influence over the products that you adopt early on in life and into young adulthood. You also have small groups of intimate friends that could be considered a clique. In other words, it becomes a little exclusive. And then we have reference groups. These are groups that we identify with. So a reference group could be your office at work, your peers, or it could be the bicycling club that you go out and cycle with every weekend, or it could be the reading club, or it could be your class. So reference groups simply indicate that there are a grouping of people that have a similar interest. And then social factors like roles and status also play an influence on your consumer behavior. So a little bit more about reference groups. So there are membership groups that you could buy into. For example, when you join an HR association right after college and you become an HR officer, or a specialist, you could join that membership organization that's going to help you to improve and grow in your career. You could have aspirational groups, and those are groups that you desire to be part of. You're not part of them, but you would like to. So a lot of times these could be people that musicians that we admire, or TV figures, etc. We also have opinion leaders that we really value what those people recommend to us. And finally, we have disassociative groups. These are groups that we do not want to be referred to, and so we disassociate from them. And if they buy something, we're not going to buy it. Family, right? So family has a lot of influence. When you are a child, your parents buy all the products for you and you simply use whatever's available. But that process also helps you to become more familiar with and more attached to certain products or not. For example, there's been studies that the toothpaste that you grow up with as a child is the toothpaste that you carry into adulthood. Because it is the product that you became familiar with. It was you're used to it, you like the flavor, and you stay with that product. So looking at a model of consumer behavior, we have products and services and prices and communication. The market is giving us all this stimulus, right? And then we have other things like the technology and the politics and the culture and our economy that influence how ready we are to make a purchase. Then we have consumer psychology, so our motivations, perceptions, our learning, our memory. And then we have our consumer characteristics, which are the ones we just looked at. All of this comes together to help you make a buying decision. when and how you recognize a problem, how you evaluate, what you evaluate as alternatives, what you consider in an alternative base, even how you make that purchase decision and how you evaluate it afterwards. So breaking these down a little bit, the personal factors. Our age and stage in life illustrates or affects what we buy. For example, as this picture shows, young parents are going to buy a certain number of products that grandparents or parents even in their 50s would not buy, right? Because your children grow up and don't need those products anymore. Your occupation, your economic circumstances affect your consumer behavior, and your personality and self-concept along with your lifestyle and values. We also have key psychological processes like your motivation, perceptions, your learning, your emotions, and memory. You may have studied this associated with other topics, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs plays into purchasing decisions as well. So depending on what level we grow into or we are at the time affects the types of things that we are going to want to buy. For example, right after a hurricane or a natural disaster, we are the most ready to buy insurance, that we want security and protection. When we have a job and we're established and we're wanting to grow in our career, then we are affected quite a bit by self-esteem, recognition, and status, and so on. So some of those key psychological processes like perception, how we select, organize, interpret information into something that's meaningful will affect how we make those purchases. And then learning, our drives and our cues, our generalizations or our discrimination, all of these are induced changes in our behavior based on our experience. So if I buy something and I really like it and people compliment me on it and it's just been a really good experience, I'm going to go out from that learning and want to buy that product again. If, on the other hand, I buy something and I have a negative experience, or even if I'm having an okay experience but others criticize me for it, then my learning will be that that's probably not the product I want, and I will be less likely to buy that product in the future. Our emotions have a lot to do with how we make purchases as well. And then our memory, how we encode, how we retrieve, and how we associate with brands are very important. So finally, the buying decision process, we start with recognizing that we have a problem, we have a need. Something as simple as the tube of toothpaste is almost empty. And then we search for information. In the case of toothpaste, we're going to go to the store and grab the one that we're most familiar with. Unless, for example, you went to the dentist and the dentist says, you really need to change toothpaste and use this because maybe you have a condition or something that you need to care for. Then you're going to go to the store and all of a sudden you're going to be very aware of the variety of toothpaste and the choices that are out there. And so you're going to start that information search to find out which brands or which product within a brand will have what you're looking for. You may find 2, 3, 5 different alternatives of toothpaste and evaluate those alternatives, make a purchase, and then you're going to try that product and evaluate whether you liked it, how it tasted, did it do what was expected, especially if it's like for a condition or something, or did it make the other people in your family happy? That post-purchase behavior or evaluation is very important to repeat business. So here's a decision-making process. For example, buying a computer. So the total set of computers, right? There's Apple, there's Dell, there's HP, there's Toshiba, Compaq, NEC. There's a variety, right? And you may not even be aware of the total set, but you are aware of a certain number. Let's say that you're familiar with 5 brands. Of those 5 brands, you may decide that, well, this one I didn't like, or this one someone said it broke down very fast, or this one has a bad reputation. And so certain ones you will eliminate from that consideration set. And at this point, you start to do research. You start to seek out information of that smaller consideration set. And then maybe you decide on 1 or 2 products as your choice set. You continue the evaluation until you make the decision to purchase one or the other. Intervening factors in that purchase decision could be your purchase intention, the attitudes of others, or any unanticipated situational factors. It could be something as simple as you got to the store and there was a phenomenal sale on one brand and not on the other, and since you were debating between those two, your decision is made kind of for you because of that sale. And then our post-purchase decisions are becoming more and more important as we are aware of issues in the environment, because today we are much more conscious of how do we dispose of products, and some of us will not even buy a product unless we know that the process of disposal is going to be appropriate. So we go from product to getting it maybe temporary, permanent, and keeping it, to using the product. Either we rent it or lend it, we purchase it, we convert it, we store it, right? Then we dispose of it, we give it away, we trade it, we sell it, we throw it away. And then we're looking then at the reuse. Can it be resold? Can it be used, traded and used? Could it be directed to another consumer directly or through a middle person? And so you can see that that disposal is getting more and more important in this process. That brings us to the end of talking about customer decision making, and stay tuned for the next.